Welcome back to RFN, America's solution to accuracy in reporting. I'm Layne Lanegan. On the phone, as promised, we're going to have Dr. Samroy Topp, Ph.D. He is the Herminio F. Chafe Distinguished Professor of History at the School of Society and Culture at Palms University. He has several books, a number of them on the bestseller list, including TM, My Least Vulnerable Joint, and Prime Time in Review, What to Think About the Effort and Art of Others. With us today, Dr. Topp. He is a historian. His expertise is in pop culture. He also knows quite a bit about comics, with a specialty in particular DC comics from the golden era on through the modern era. He is an expert in Batman and his Rogues Gallery. In particular, he has been called, and if you go to his Wikipedia page, he is the international expert on the Joker. And since that is in the news today, we can't wait to dive into that. Dr. Topp, how are you today?
I'm really happy to be here.
Nice to have you on the show. Look, it's real pain in the neck trying to get you on because you're kind of in demand with this new Joker film coming out. A lot of questions about the film, the violence, the politics of it all, the class struggle, the incel comments. A lot to talk about here. First, before we get into the film, I'd like to know a little bit about yourself, sir. How did you get into such an interesting field?
I always liked history, particularly American history and pop culture, and I was just someone who grew up reading comics as a kid.
Can you speak up a little bit there, Doctor? I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry. I grew up reading comic books, so
all right.
I never liked a talent. I couldn't draw the thing, but I found it fascinating, the creators and the mythology and how it grew over the years, that I just said, look, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. I want to study this, know it better.
Interesting. And how about the interest in Batman? Is he just like the king of comic book characters? Why focus so specifically on Batman?
Well, I mean, I am the Batman. I just don't see how you can not like Batman. He's just an ethereal embodiment of justice, in that he embodies our desire to wrong all the rights of an unjust world. So Batman was, and plus the fact that I grew up in New Jersey. So I don't know if you know this, but Gotham was in part based on New Jersey. So
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did the creator or the writer, was he from New Jersey?
No, actually. Well, see, that's a controversy. When you say the creator, there's a common misconception. Most people think Bill Kane created the Joker and Batman by himself, but Bill Finger was a big part of the inception of the creation. It's very, very controversial, but in recent time they've started to put Bill Finger's name on Batman, in the credits in these Batman movies, and I imagine Bill Finger was featured prominently at the end of the Joker, but he died, of course, penniless. And a lot of people didn't know this about him, but he never got that credit within his lifetime. But after the Kane estate has now relinquished, and Bill Finger gets his proper due.
That's good. Good to hear.
Writer. Yeah, he gets the credit. So to answer your question, no, they didn't grow up in New Jersey. They grew up in New York. Just kind of looking over at New Jersey, they probably said it's not the greatest place to live in.
Interesting. And you said that Bill Finger gets his due at the end of the film. Speaking of the film, would you mind giving the audience a bit of a rundown of the film for those who haven't seen it, without spoilers, of course, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, well, it takes a little bit from here and there. Watching it, what to me was reminiscent of The Killing Joke. Obviously, Alan Moore and Brian Boland's Killing Joke. Brian Boland was the illustrator. Alan Moore was the writer. And it's basically a guy who has one bad day. It delves into it a little bit deeper. He has a bit of a backstory. They go with the route that there's some mental illness, but there's some precedents, within the comic books that the Joker may have had some mental illness in his background. But they kind of dive deeper into that, and you see the downward spiral into madness. Well, to be honest, he starts in madness and continues further into madness. But it really was, I think it was a treat to finally see Fleck, portrayed in detail.
Now, is in the comics, is Arthur Fleck is he mad from the get, or is there some kind of in the comics progression from madness? Because, like you said in the film, he starts out menacingly laughing, like you said, with these mental issues. But is that true to the comics?
Well, listen, there's been many versions of the comics, and it's a really good question. If you start at the early 40s, so Arthur debuts in Batman #1 in the 1940s, right? He comes out, and he actually was based on the German expressionist film by Paul Lenny, The Man Who Laughs. And,
Interesting.
Bill Finger, and I believe Bill Kane, the Bills, if you will, they took the inspiration from that movie. It was about a serial killer, a murderer, very violent man, and that was the inspiration for the Joker. And it was more violent, believe it or not, because you mentioned some of the violence that people think is controversial, but I think this goes back to the 1940s.
Interesting.
And and that Joker ended up dying actually in his debut. A lot of people don't know that. Eventually, he was so popular, he demanded that they bring him back. And later in the 1950s, due to the Comics Code, the popularity of the 60s show, so you had the 50s and the 60s where Joker became more of a, maniacal themed, prankster, bank robber type. But he debuted originally as a serial killer. So the film portrayed that film. I think that was very faithful. Then you got into the 70s with Denny O'Neill's take, which kind of brought him back to that darker tone. I think there's a scene, without any spoilers, where they said, "Hey, are you gonna rob the place? I thought you were gonna rob the place." And so there was little notes there. They took a lot of liberties, but there were a lot of notes there.
That's interesting that you mentioned the serial killer aspect. I didn't know that was part of the comics, but there was a part in here, particularly with the daughter, with the building tenant and the building tenant's child. I didn't think they were going to go that route, but they went that route. I don't want to give any spoilers, and I thought that was maybe going too far.
I don't want to give anything away, but yeah. Well, I didn't want to give anything away. But yes, that was a part of Joker's character from the very beginning. I was deeply surprised. I went into the film not knowing the rating, so if you're going to bring your little one, understand that it is a rated R movie. It has language, it had themes, it had all the trappings of a Scorsese film, which Scorsese produced this film.
All right, Dr. Topp, what did you like about it? I'm going to ask you to put on the hat of a critic here and just tell me what you liked about the film.
Well, I mean, I like the fact that they got that. They look like they really took a lot of research in understanding Fleck's mental illness, and in the comics, you could tell that there was something that there was a history of mental illness. Well, depending on who you speak, depending on who you're talking about, but I think, especially the modern comics, Fleck has a bunch of issues, and they are they're more than just one bad day. If I can say that. So I like that there was a progression. If I was to say something else that I really liked, is I like the fact that he put on the makeup. I know that I thought he wasn't going to become the Joker early on, but when that moment he's licking his paintbrush, you saw in the trailers, and he's putting the makeup. It seemed like something out of a Frank Miller comic.
All right, what, if anything, did you hate? I hate to put you on the spot here, but what did you hate about this film?
Well, he wasn't a super genius, and you'll probably hear a lot of people say that. I can't help it. I'm a big fan. The Joker is a criminal mastermind. And that did occur to me as well, a mere layman, that he just kind of seemed a little bit like a mentally ill person who's now stuck. And I think they're going for realism.
Yeah.
Perhaps, but I felt the whole criminal mastermind aspect in The Dark Knight, the Christopher Nolan trilogy, they were able to kind of capture that. But to see this version of Arthur Fleck, it was a bit disturbing. I don't know what the Bills would think about this, kind of going in there. But I will say, like I said, there's been many versions of Jokers from the early 40s right on to the modern era, right up to Tom King's version of the Joker. This is another way to look at it this way. In the comic books, they've recently, and I don't know if it's been affected by the movie coming out, but in the current contemporary comic books, it has been revealed that there are many Jokers. There is the Killing Joke version of the Joker. Like I said, the earlier version. I don't remember each version, but I do remember that they're trying to promote the idea, and I don't know if that was a PR thing that they were forced to do because the movies had two versions of the Joker, but recently it's been revealed that there are many versions. So I wasn't too upset that he was not a criminal mastermind, because I'm sure there's a Joker within that 70, 80 plus years of Arthur Fleck, that there's going to be some version of him that isn't a criminal mastermind. Interesting.
Doctor, onto the performance of the main actor. You'll forgive me if his name escapes me. I'm no historian of pop culture. How did you think the actor who played...
You mean the actor who played him?
Yes.
Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah, I'm a fan. I was a fan of him since Gladiator.
Okay. Yes, you're right. He was in Gladiator. A lot of people are talking about playing the character of the Joker. The psychological effects of maybe getting into that mind in order to portray that type of character. How did Joaquin Phoenix do compared to maybe other portrayers of that character, most notably the actor from The Dark Knight, whose name also escapes me? How did he do with that? Do you expect any ill effects? And comparatively, do you think he's in danger compared to the outcomes of those other fine actors?
Well, Joaquin Phoenix, I'm embarrassed to say I don't know how they got to it. I really don't know how he prepared, but I do know that both Jared Leto and Heath Ledger, they locked themselves in it's believed that they locked themselves in a room with Arkham Asylum. That's a seminal work written by Grant Morrison that really takes you into the whole rogues gallery. It features the Joker prominently, and he took a lot of not so much Jared Leto. I know that Jared Leto, he researched the comic books in general, but the big one that we're all talking about, the one that unfortunately died, some say from suicide, but it was definitely an overdose for sure. When Heath Ledger passed away, there was a lot of speculation, but he actually locked himself in with some of the greats like Grant Morrison's.
Would you go so far as to? I know we're getting off topic here from the Joker film, but would you go so far as to say that Heath's death was, if not a direct result, at least correlated with The Dark Knight and getting into character?
I'm not even going there.
Safe
I don't know.
Safe bet, Doctor. And I know you have to run here. We got to get you back to your family and your meal.
Yeah,
but two more quick questions. One is what is your tube sock hard hat rating for this film, and where did you come up with that strange rating system, the tube sock hard hat rating system?
Well, I invented it. Well, it's something my daughter came up with, actually.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, yeah, what do you give this film as far as tube sock hard hat?
Well, it's closer to a hard hat than a tube sock. Let's say it's more towards the head than towards the head.
Okay, and what does the future hold for you, Dr. Topp? Do you have any websites that you'd like to promote, or any upcoming books that you'd like to advertise here on the show?
BatmanandMedia.org is a site run by my friend Walter Sins. I work very closely with him. That's pretty much it.
All right, Doctor, thank you for your time, and we'll be back in a few moments.